Some lessons don't come from books. They come from bruises. They come from life.
There is no substitute for experience, period.
Some of the biggest successes were a byproduct of failure.
If you want to learn, build, and grow,
Why not learn from somebody who's already paid the price for success?
the wisdom is in the gray.
This is the Greybeard Show.
Greybeard Show. Learn,
Build.
grow.
It was 2:17 in the morning. I remember the exact time because I'd been staring at the red digital clock on the nightstand for what felt like 3 hours. My wife was asleep beside me, the house was quiet, and my brain was running a full sprint through every problem I had absolutely zero power to fix. The economy, what Washington was going to do next, what my former partner had done to me, what the market was doing, whether the business was going to survive, whether I'd make the right call, whether the wrong call had already been made for me by forces I never controlled in the first place. Round and round it went. That mental hamster wheel that never gets you anywhere and never stops spinning on its own. And here's the part I really want you to hear this morning. I wasn't doing nothing. I thought I was working. I thought running those scenarios over and over in my head was some form of preparation, some form of due diligence. Like if I'd worried about it hard enough, long enough, and thoroughly enough, maybe I'd find the angle. Maybe I'd think my way out of the unthinkable. I was wrong, and it took me longer than I cared to admit to figure out exactly how wrong I was. Folks, welcome to the show. I'm Greybeard, and today we're going to talk about one of the most destructive habits that most intelligent, hardworking, well-meaning people in this country quietly carry every single day of their lives. We're talking about the worry trap. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're breathing and if you have a pulse and if you've been paying any attention to the world in the last 5 years, you have fallen into it. I have fallen into it. Most of the people I coach have fallen into it so deep they can't even see the edges anymore. Here's what the worry trap is. It's simple and it's ruthless. The worry trap is the deeply embedded belief, usually unconscious, that worrying harder about a problem is functionally the same as working on the problem. It isn't, not even close. But the brain doesn't know that. The brain can't always tell the difference between grinding on something in your mind and actually doing something about it. So it gives you the same sense of busyness, the same feeling of engagement. And meanwhile, you're lying in bed at 2:17 in the morning, running scenarios that have no solution about things that were never in your hands to begin with. Worry is the illusion of action. It keeps you busy going absolutely nowhere. Let me tell you something about the world we're living in right now. I don't say this to scare anybody. I say it because I think you deserve the honest truth rather than some sanitized, feel-good version of reality. The world has never been better designed to keep your attention stuck on things you cannot control. Never. The news cycle, the social media feeds, the political noise, the economic headlines, the outrage machine, all of it is engineered with one specific purpose, and that purpose is not to inform you. That purpose is to capture your attention and keep it, because your attention is worth money to somebody else. And the fuel they use to capture it, the fuel they use to capture your attention is fear. It's threat detection. The oldest and most powerful survival mechanisms the human brain has. We are hardwired to pay attention to potential threats. It kept our ancestors alive on the savannah. It helped early man survive genuine danger. And now Now, that same survival wiring gets exploited every single morning before you even get out of bed, before you've had your first cup of coffee, before you've said good morning to your family. Your threat detection system is already lit up like a switchboard because you picked up your phone and the algorithm delivered a fresh plate of everything that could possibly go wrong in the world. Here's the brutal irony. Most of what you consume in the morning, most of it, you have zero power over any of it. Not one thing. You can't fix what's happening in Washington. You can't undo what happened to the economy. You can't control what other people decide to do, what policies get passed, what markets do, or what global forces are in motion. You got fed a full meal of uncontrollable variables, and your brain is now running at maximum capacity trying to solve unsolvable problems before breakfast. Now multiply that by every day, every week, every month, year after year after year. And then ask yourself, why? Why do I feel so exhausted? Why do I feel so anxious? Why doesn't it feel like I'm working so hard and getting nowhere? Because you are working hard, just on the wrong things. You've been pouring your most valuable resource, your mental and emotional energy, into a vessel that has no bottom. You cannot fill it. You cannot fix it. And the more you pour into it, the emptier you feel. The most productive people you've ever met aren't people with fewer problems. They're people who've learned what not to think about. I want you to think about someone in your life. Maybe you know them. Maybe you've read about them. Maybe you've just observed them from a distance. Someone who seems to operate at a different frequency than the average person. Calm under pressure. Decisive when others freeze, not rattled by the same noise that rattles everyone else. I've known people like that, studied them, coached them, and I want to tell you that the single most consistent thing I've found about people who operate that way, it's not that they don't face hard things. It's not that the world treats them more kindly or gives them a smoother road. It's that somewhere along the way, through hard experience, through good mentorship, through faith, through failure, through whatever their particular crucible happened to be, they learned how to sort. They learned how to look at incoming information and make a rapid, almost unconscious decision. Is this mine to carry? Or is it not? Does this belong in my hands or does it not? That sorting skill, that discipline is the key difference between a life that feels driven and a life that feels dragged. And it is a skill. It is not a personality type you're born with. It's not a gift handed out to a lucky few. It is something you learn. It's something that you can develop. It's something that you can practice. It's something that you can build deliberately over time. And that is exactly what this show is about today. 5 segments, 1 central truth. And by the time we're done, I want you to walk away with a framework that you can start using today, not someday, not when circumstances change, not when the world settles down, today, because the world is not getting better soon. It's not going to settle down quickly. That is not a prediction. That is a pattern. And the man or the woman who waits for calm external conditions to start living a focused, purposeful, powerful life, that person is going to be waiting forever. Stay with me, because coming up next, we're going to do something that most people never do. We're going to sit down and make the list, the full, honest, unfiltered list of everything that you've been carrying that was never actually yours to carry. And I'm going to show you why making that list, as uncomfortable as it might be, is one of the most freeing things you will ever do. Now, if you're listening, if you'd like to connect, if you'd like to get a few more resources, all you got to do is text Greybeard to 84503. I'm a marketing mentor. I'm a business coach. I'm a strategist. I'm a thinking partner. I help people become better versions of themselves. If you'd like to connect, this is the type of stuff we talk about. All you got to do is text Greybeard, Greybeard, to 84503. I want to talk about taking back your power. I told you we were going to make a list, not a motivational list, not a vision board, not a gratitude journal. I'm talking about the other list, the list of everything you've been carrying that doesn't belong to you. And if you're anything like most people I work with, that list is a lot longer than you think. Now, here's why most people never make the list that we're going to make. Because there's something in us, something stubborn, maybe something proud, maybe a little touch of arrogance in there as well. If we're being honest about it, there's something in us that wants to believe we can handle it all. That if we just care enough, try hard enough, think about it long enough, we can somehow bring uncontrollable things under control through the sheer force of our concern. We treat worry like it's a form of loyalty. Like if I stop worrying about this thing, I'm abandoning it. Like letting go means I don't care. Let me be as direct as I can with you about something. Letting go of what you cannot control is not apathy. It's not weakness. It is not surrender. It is one of the most disciplined, most sophisticated, most mature things you and I as people can do. And the failure to do it, the insistence on carrying what was never yours to carry, that's not strength. That's a leak. It is a leak, a slow, steady drain on everything you have. Because carrying what isn't yours to carry isn't loyalty. Like I said, it's that leak. Eventually, it empties you. So let's name it. Let's actually put words to what people are dragging around right now, because I've done enough coaching, enough radio, enough real conversation with real people to know exactly what's on that list for most of you listening this morning out in Radio Land. The economy. That's on most people's lists. Inflation. Interest rates. The price of everything that has gone up and doesn't seem to be coming back down. The housing market, what the Federal Reserve is going to decide at their next meeting. I hear about this constantly, all of these things. People who are genuinely stressed, genuinely losing sleep, genuinely making decisions out of fear about an economy that they have zero direct control over. Now listen. What I'm not saying is, I'm not saying economic conditions don't matter. They do. I'm saying the amount of mental and emotional bandwidth most people allocate to worrying about macro level economic forces that they do not create and cannot redirect is wildly disproportionate to anything useful that worry produces. Government and politics. Lord. I could do a whole show on this alone. The amount of energy, good, productive, valuable human energy that is being burned every single day in this country by people who are outraged about what politicians are doing, what they said, what they tweeted, what policy got passed or didn't get passed. And I want to ask you a genuine question here. Not a rhetorical one, but an actual question I want you to sit with. What has your outrage changed about any of that? What has your sustained political anxiety actually produced in your own life? not in Washington, in your life, in your household, in your relationships, in your health, in your finances. What has your sustained political anxiety actually produced in your own life, in your household, in your relationships, in your health, in your finances, in your marriage, in your relationship with your children? What has it produced that has been positive, helpful, meaningful? Most people, when they sit with that question, honestly, don't have a satisfying answer, because the honest answer is that the outrage produced nothing except exhaustion, nothing but division and chronic low-grade anxiety that follows them everywhere they go. You can stay informed. I'm not saying stick your head in the sand. I'm saying there is a massive difference between being informed and being consumed. And most people crossed that line a long time ago. Let me just say, most people are consumed. They're not informed. What other people think, other people's choices, other people's behavior. This is a massive one, and it shows up in every dimension of life: personal, professional, relational, social. For example, the fear of judgment, the obsession with reputation, the energy spent managing perceptions, anticipating what criticism you might face, rehearsing conversations that haven't happened yet with people who may never actually say what you're afraid they're going to say. All of it, every single bit of it, is outside of your circle of control. You do not get a vote on what other people think of you. You never did, you never will. The past. Let's talk about the past. The past. Decisions that have already been made. Opportunities that have already closed. Relationships that have already ended. Seasons of life that are over. I have coached people who are still, genuinely still, having arguments in their head with people from a decade ago. Still carrying the weight of a business decision they made in 2018. Still trying to mentally litigate a partnership that fell apart years before they walked into the office. The past is outside your control by definition. It is done, and yet for many people it functions like a full-time job, relitigating it, regretting it, defending yourself against it in the courtroom of your own mind. The past is exactly where it needs to be. In the past. Leave it there. Don't dig it up. Don't unbury it. Don't walk around with it. Don't wallow with it. Don't do it. Leave it in the past. The past is the past. Global events, natural disasters, technology disruption, the rise of AI and what it might do to your industry, the geopolitical landscape. I get it. These things have real consequences, but there's a difference between being strategically aware of macro level forces and lying awake at night, personally absorbing the weight of things that are in motion, regardless of how much you worry about them. Things that you cannot control, things that there's absolutely nothing that you can do to change, to reimagine, to improve. You just can't. You were not given authority over the whole world. You were given authority over yourself. And that's not a limitation. That's actually a massive assignment that most people are failing at because they're too busy managing everyone else's lane. You're too busy worried about things you can't control that you're ignoring all of the things in your life that you can control. The outrage, the worry, the where is this country going? What's happening to me? Where is this going to be? Am I going to have a job? All of that stuff, all of that noise is preventing you from making actual, real, significant, lasting change in your own life in areas where you can control how things are moving or not moving. This concept that you were given authority over yourself, it not being a limitation, that's actually a massive assignment that most people are failing at because they're too busy managing everyone else's lane. That last line, I want you to sit in that for a minute because it comes from something deeper than productivity advice. It comes from a place of faith. And I talk about this openly because it's been central to how I've navigated every hard season of my life. The idea of stewardship, that you've been entrusted with specific things, your mind, your body, your relationships, your gifts, your time, your response to adversity, those are all your assignment. That is the domain you have actual authority over, not the whole world, not the economy, not the culture, not what other people decide, but your relationships, your body, your mind, your gifts, your time. Those are the things that you have control over. And here's what I've found. The people that understand that, who genuinely accept that, they don't feel diminished by that. They feel released by it. Because the moment you stop trying to manage what was never yours to manage, you suddenly have an enormous amount of capacity freed up. Bandwidth that was being consumed by futile effort is now available for something real. Energy and thought energy that you're using to worry about problems you can't control can now be specifically focused and harnessed to address the areas of your life that you actually want to change. A better you is a better world for everyone. You focusing on creating a better you for you makes your immediate world, the people that you love, the people you interact with, the people that you come into contact with in your community, in your work job, in your life, in your household, in your family, they become better because you were better. You lifted them up. You inspired them. You became a better version of yourself. That is one small butterfly wing of change for you and the world. The moment you stop trying to manage what was never yours, that capacity that you have to attack the areas of your life that you can improve, it is a wonderful feeling. It's freeing. It's like a weight comes off your shoulders, a weight that you've been carrying that you should not be carrying. You can actually change things that actually move, something that responds to your input. And that's what we're going to be talking about next because, we've done the surgery. We've identified the drain. Now I want to show you exactly how large your real portfolio actually is. And I think you're going to be surprised because most people, when they actually look at what is genuinely within their control, sphere of control, realize that they've been sitting on an untouched gold mine while crying about being poor. Stay with me. Segment 3 is where this turns. But if you're listening now and you'd like to connect, if you'd like to reach out, if you'd like to explore working with somebody that has a marketing mind, a strategic thinking mind, somebody that can come alongside you as a thought partner, strategist for you, both in business and in life, you can connect with me by texting Greybeard, Greybeard, Greybeard to 84503. Text Greybeard on your phone, send me a text, reach out, say hi, start the conversation. Text Greybeard to 84503. I want you to stay with me in this next segment because this is where the whole show turns. In the first 2 segments, we talked about the worry trap. And we named what's outside your circle of control. That was the diagnosis. Name the things that are outside your circle of control. That was the surgery. Now we're going to look at what actually is in your hands, your real portfolio, the things that you can control. And I want you to brace yourself a little. Because the thing I've found in coaching real people through this work is that when they finally take an honest accounting of what they actually can and do control in their lives, their first emotion isn't empowerment, it's conviction. It's a little uncomfortable because the list is enormous. And the gap between what's available to you and what you've been doing, that gap is significant. So let me say this as plainly as I can so there's no misunderstanding about where I'm going. I'm not here to make you feel bad about yourself. That's not the point, and it's not useful. The point is that you've been operating at a fraction of your capacity, not because you're lazy, but not because you lack the ability, but because the majority of your mental and emotional resources have been systematically redirected towards things that were never in your hands, things that were never part of your control to begin with. Fix the redirect, and you'll be amazed at what becomes possible inside your own life. Let's build that list. Start with your physical body. This is the first and most foundational item in your real portfolio, and it is almost universally neglected by people who claim to feel out of control. Here's a fact about your body. It responds to input consistently, predictably, almost without exception. You train it, it gets stronger. You feed it well, it performs better. You sleep with discipline and it thinks more clearly. You move it, your mental state improves. Your stress response moderates. Your confidence rebuilds from the ground up. Your body is a completely controllable system. And for most people, it's running on whatever settings life defaulted it to because they've been too busy worrying about the economy to go to the gym or to take a walk or to be physical or to do push-ups or sit-ups or to just move. You got to move it or you'll lose it. I personally train 4 to 5 days a week. I have a fully equipped gym in my home and I use it with intention. And I will tell you that on the hardest days, the days when external circumstances are genuinely difficult, when the business is under pressure, when things aren't going the way you planned, the hour or hour and a half I spend in that gym is the hour I feel most in control of something because I am. The bar, my weight bar, it doesn't care what the Fed is doing. The bar doesn't care about the political chaos. It just responds to your effort. That feedback loop. Effort in, result out is something that the anxious, overstimulated, doom scrolling modern brain desperately needs and rarely gets outside of physical discipline. Your body is a completely controllable system. Most people are running it on default settings because they've been too busy worrying about the economy to go to the gym. That is an easy thing to change. I will just share with you that I personally changed my life by doing 1 mile a day, just walking 1 mile a day, every day in the month of June back in 2016. For that one day, for that 1 month, I participated in a challenge streak. My wife has a pretty big Instagram following. She had a challenge streak called Streaking with the Cool Kids. And I participated in that streak for the first time back in 2016. It was a purposeful mile a day every day in the month of June. And doing that mile a day, just starting with that, no gym, no effort, nothing strenuous, nothing terribly physical, just getting outside to do a mile a day. That mile a day ended up changing my life. I lost 6 or 7 pounds through the course of that month, got to the end of the month and said, I don't see a reasonable reason to quit now. I've done 30 days. Why not do 60 days? Did another 60 days, then said didn't feel like a reason to quit. And now here I am almost 10 years later. So I've been doing a mile a day every day, walking, dedicated, walking, jogging, running, doesn't matter. Just get it in. Doesn't really matter which way you do it. I've done a mile on crutches. I've done a mile with COVID. I've done a mile with the flu. I've done a mile in the snow. I've done a mile in the rain. But that mile a day is something that you can do right now to change your life. Take that control. I'm going to take that time. I'm going to protect that time, and I'm going to have that time serve me. I'm going to get outside. I'm going to smell fresh air. I'm going to feel the wind on my face. I'm going to talk with God. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to relax. I'm going to try to focus on the things that are in my control versus focusing on the things that are not in my ability to control at all. So start there, your body. You can also start with your financial decisions at the household level. Can't do anything about the USA economy, but you can do something about your own household economy. What you spend, what you save, what you invest in, whether you're building streams of income or just protecting one. whether you've had the hard conversations about money with your spouse, whether you have a plan or whether you're just hoping things will work out. This is almost entirely within your control. Not perfectly. There are real constraints, real challenges, real hardship in people's financial lives. And I don't minimize any of that. But the decision-making, the discipline, the habits, the trajectory, that's yours. And for far too many people, those controllable decisions have been neglected while they spent their energy being upset about inflation. You can be upset about inflation and still build wealth. The two are not mutually exclusive, but one of them requires action and one of them requires an internet connection. Your relationships, who you invest in, who you allow close access to your life, who you've been neglecting, the friendships you've let fade, the conversations you've been avoiding with the people you love, the quality of your marriage, because a great marriage doesn't happen on autopilot. And if yours has been running on fumes while you were distracted by everything outside the house, that's a controllable variable that needs your attention. The loneliness epidemic in this country is real. I've seen the data. More than 1 billion people worldwide struggling with mental health conditions, anxiety, depression, disconnection at the top of the list. And yet when you look at the controllable component of loneliness, it is almost entirely about the investments people have stopped making in real relationships because passive digital consumption replaced it. That's it. Simple. It's been easier and simpler to be passively digitally consuming on your phone than it has been to serve and to pour into and to develop and to maintain relationships with people that were once valuable to you in your life. That is fixable. That is something you can fix today. Something else you can fix is your faith life, your spiritual foundation. I'm going to speak plainly here because it's who I am. Your relationship with God is entirely in your hands. The decision to anchor yourself to something bigger than circumstances, bigger than market conditions, bigger than political outcomes, that is a choice you make every single day. And for the people I've seen navigate the hardest chapters of their lives with the most grace, the most stability, the most genuine peace, faith has been the common denominator without exception. Not a naive, everything is fine kind of faith, but a hard one, tested. I've been through the fire and I'm still standing kind of faith. That is something you can control. That is yours. Your mindset. The internal narrative you run about yourself, about your circumstances, about what's possible, about what you deserve, about what you're capable of. This is perhaps the most powerful item on the list and the most consistently underestimated. The stories you tell yourself, especially the ones you've been telling yourself so long you've stopped hearing them as stories and started hearing them as facts. Those stories determine nearly everything about how you live right now today. Your responses to failure, your tolerance for discomfort, whether you see an obstacle as a dead end or as a detour, whether you interpret a setback as evidence that you're not enough or evidence that you haven't yet found the right approach. The skills you build or you neglect and they atrophy. The businesses you start or never start, the income you create or wait for someone else to grant you, the legacy you build or the one you coast on or the one you leave entirely by chance. Most people are running their controllable portfolio at 30% capacity because the other 70% of their bandwidth is consumed by things that were never theirs to manage. Just let that land for a second. 30%. Think about that in business terms. If you told me your business was operating at 30% of its capacity, not because the market was bad, not because of competition, not because of external forces, but because the owner was spending 70% of his time and energy obsessing over things he had zero power to change, I'd tell you that business is in serious trouble. And more importantly, it doesn't have to be. Just for a moment, think about that. How much of your mental energy, your mental bandwidth, your mental capacity, how much of it is being spent on things you cannot control versus how much of it is being spent on actually controlling the things that you can control? Maybe that's your life I'm describing. It doesn't have to stay that way. Coming up next, we're going to get practical because I'm not a therapist and I'm not here to hand you insight or send you on your way. In segment 4, I'm going to give you a specific daily practice, something I call the daily power audit, that you can start using tomorrow morning to redirect your energy away from what you can't control and toward what you can. It's simple, it's fast, and it works. That's coming up next. Now, if you want to get in touch, if you'd like to explore potentially working with a mentor such as myself, you can do that by texting Greybeard to 84503. Take out your smartphone, go to your texting app, key in 84503, and then all I simply want you to do is text one word, me, Greybeard, to 84503.
I made you a promise before the break, and I said I was going to give you something practical. Not a concept, not a philosophy, not an inspirational quote to stick on your bathroom mirror, but a practice, something you can actually do, because that's the only thing that moves the needle. Insight without a method is just expensive self-awareness. You know more about your problems, but you're still standing in the same place. So here's what I want to introduce to you today. I call it the daily power audit. And before you write it off as some kind of productivity gimmick, give me 5 minutes to explain what it actually is and why it works. Because people in my world, my coaching world, who've adopted this practice consistently, daily, without cutting corners, have reported that it changed not only their productivity, but their entire emotional experience of being alive. That's not an exaggeration. That's what happens when you stop bleeding energy and start directing it. So here's the structure. It's 3 questions every morning. Before you look at your phone, before you turn on the news, before you let the outside world start loading its agenda into your mind. 3 questions that take only 10 minutes, require nothing but honesty, and set the entire orientation of your day. So question number 1. First question you're going to ask, okay? What am I carrying today that isn't mine to carry? This is the clearing question, the surgical question, if you will. You sit with it and you name it out loud or on paper or in prayer. The specific things that have been attaching themselves to your mental bandwidth that you have no actual power over, no control over, no ability to affect or change. But be specific. Don't just say the economy. Name the specific thing. For example, the fear that interest rates are going to make your refinance impossible, or the anxiety about what a particular person thinks of a decision you made, or the worry about a global situation you read about this morning before you had the discipline to put your phone down. Name it. And then do something that sounds simple, but it's actually very profound. Set it down. Consciously, deliberately. It's best if you can write it on paper and then just set it down. Push it away. Make it further from you deliberately, not forever. You're not pretending it doesn't exist, but you're just deciding that it does not get to live in your operating bandwidth today. It doesn't get a desk in your mental office. You acknowledged it, you said its name, and now you're sitting it outside the door because you've got work to do in here that requires your full attention. For the people of faith in this audience, I know many of you are. There's a lot of people that listen to me that are people of faith. This is exactly what it looks like to bring something to God and actually leave it there. Not bring it, leave it, drive home, and then turn around and pick it back up 3 hours later. Actually leave it. Give it to Him. Give it to him to worry about. Give it to him to solve. Give it to him to, stress about. The practice of surrender is not just spiritually sound, it is neurologically productive. The brain that isn't carrying dead weight operates at a fundamentally different level than the brain that is. If you're constantly in the noise of your mind, how can you have any fresh thoughts? How can you have clear thoughts? How can God show you the way or re-encourage or encourage you that there is a way? So here's question number 2. What is actually in my hands today? What is in my hands today? This is the inventory question. After you've cleared the deck of what doesn't belong to you, now you look at what does. And be honest here. Don't write down things that sound impressive and then spend the day on your phone. What is genuinely in your power to affect change in today? What can you move? What can you build? What conversation can you have? What discipline can you maintain? What decision can you make? What relationship can you invest in? Write down 2 or 3 things. Not 20, just 2 or 3 things. Because one of the traps people fall into when they first start redirecting their energy toward controllable things is that they overcorrect. They make a massive list of everything they should be doing and then feel overwhelmed by the list and then go back to doom scrolling because at least it requires nothing of them. 2 or 3 specific, actionable, controllable things. That's your agenda. Question 3, what is the one thing I can do today that future me will be grateful for? Ooh, that's a good one, right? This is a legacy question, the compounding question, because the real power of the daily power audit isn't just in what it does for you today. It's in what it builds over time. Every day you make one good decision in your controllable portfolio, your controllable options, one workout, one difficult conversation, 1 hour of building rather than consuming, one act of genuine investment in your marriage, one step toward a financial decision that needed to be made. You are compounding quietly, invisibly, powerfully, compounding your life. And 6 months from now, a year from now, or 5 years from now, the person who did that every day is unrecognizable compared to the person who spent that time absorbing uncontrollable variables from a screen. The gap between those 2 people isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't that the world was kinder to one than the other. It's the daily compounding of disciplined attention. Every hour spent consuming outrage and uncontrollable noise without a corresponding hour of productive action is a net negative on your life. That math doesn't lie. Now, I want to talk to you about information consumption for a minute because I think that this is one of the most underappreciated contributors to the epidemic of anxiety and powerlessness that I see in the people I work with. We live in the information age and we are drowning in it. The average person consumes somewhere between 4 and 7 hours of screen content per day. Much of it news, social media, opinion content, and outrage fuel. And here's the problem that nobody talks about honestly enough. Information consumption without proportional action creates a specific kind of psychological toxicity. It's the feeling of being overwhelmed without being engaged, of knowing more and more about problems while doing less and less about anything, of being constantly stimulated without ever being satisfied. The brain was designed to process information and then act on it. When the information to action ratio gets severely lopsided, which is exactly what modern media consumption produces, the result is anxiety, helplessness, and a creeping sense that the world is out of control and there's nothing you can do about any of it. There is something you can do about it. You can manage your inputs. You can decide how much of the uncontrollable world gets access to your first hour in the morning. You can build a practice of acting before consuming. You can make it a non-negotiable that before you pick up your phone and let the algorithm load its agenda into your mind, you have already answered your 3 questions, already identified what's in your hands, and already set it down what isn't, and already started moving on the one thing that future you will be grateful that you did today. I want to also say something about the role of physical discipline in all of this, because that is not abstract for me. The gym is part of my daily reset, and it has been for years. When the external world is in chaos, even when it's in maximum chaos, and there have been seasons in my life where it genuinely was, the 1 hour, sometimes it's an hour and a half. The 1 hour I spend training is the 1 hour I feel categorically in command of something. Because I am. My effort produces a direct and predictable result. And that feedback loop, the experience of input producing output, of effort producing response, of intention producing outcome, is something that the anxious modern brain desperately needs. It's a reminder, a physical, undeniable reminder that you are not powerless, that what you do matters, that your choices produce consequences. And if it's true in the gym, it's true everywhere else as well. The daily reset isn't a magical formula. It's a discipline. And like all disciplines, its power is not in understanding it. It's in doing it daily, without exception. Coming up in the next and final segment, we're going to zoom all the way out because there's a dimension to this conversation that goes deeper than productivity and deeper than managing your anxiety. It goes to who you become in the hard seasons and why that might be the most important question any of us ever answers. And that's coming up. But let me just say this. Let me take a moment here to acknowledge that if you're listening, if any of this is hitting home, if it's resonating with you, if you'd like to reach out, get in touch, maybe see if there's a mentorship opportunity that you could take advantage of, then reach out to me. All you got to do is text Greybeard to 84503. Text Greybeard, Greybeard, to 84503. All right, finishing up here. Last segment of the show. I want to shift the energy a little bit here because what I want to talk about in this last segment does, well, think of it this way. It goes deeper than the tools we've talked about in the last segment, deeper than the inventory work from the initial conversation. And I want to talk about something that I believe is the most important and most under-examined dimension of this entire conversation. And that is this: who you become in the hard seasons is the only version of you that will ever matter. Let me say that again. Who you become in the hardest seasons of your life. Not what you achieve during the easy ones. Not what you accumulate when the conditions are favorable. Not the version of you that shows up when everything is working. But who you become when it isn't. That is the real you. That is the you that your family is watching. That you that your children are learning from. That you that your closest people are forming their understanding of the world through. See, I've been through some storms. I say that without drama and without self-pity because neither of those things serves anybody. Bankruptcy. I've done it. I've been there. A crushing tax burden that took years to climb out from under. I've done that, been there. A business partnership that ended in betrayal at a moment when I could not afford the betrayal. Seasons of rebuilding from a place so far below where I'd been that most people who knew me before wouldn't have recognized the circumstances I was navigating. And I want to tell you something about those seasons that I could not have told you while I was in them, that I can only tell you from the other side. The circumstances were not what shaped me. They were the context, the crucible, the thing that created the pressure. But what actually did the shaping, what actually produced the version of me that exists today, was the choices I made in the middle of those circumstances. The decision, repeated daily, to focus on what was mine to do, to control, rather than collapse under what wasn't mine to control. The decision to show up for my wife and my sons, even when I wasn't sure how things were going to turn out. The decision to keep my faith at the center when everything around it was unstable. Those choices, that's what did it. Your circumstances are the crucible, but your choices inside those circumstances are the forge. And what comes out of the forge is entirely up to you. You have control over that. There's a concept that philosophers have wrestled with that the experience has confirmed for me beyond any academic argument that can be made. And it's simply this: between what happens to you and how you respond to it, there is a space, a gap. It may feel like a millisecond, or it may feel like an eternity, depending on your training and your temperament, but it exists. And in that space, in that gap between stimulus and response, lives the entirety of your power as a human being. Every bit of it. The economy can collapse that space. Political outrage can collapse that space. Social media can collapse that space. Train you to react instantly, emotionally, reflexively, before your prefrontal cortex has even had a chance to engage. And when that space collapses, you become reactive. You become a function of your inputs. You become predictable in the worst possible way, not in the sense that people know what to expect from you in a good way, but in the sense that the outside world can reliably predict exactly how you'll respond because you've surrendered the space between stimulus and response entirely. The work of this show today, the worry trap, the list, the real portfolio, the daily power audit, all of it is ultimately about protecting and expanding that space, training it, building it deliberately, so that when the hard thing comes, and it will come, because that's the nature of human life, you are not at the mercy of your first instinct. You have a practice. You have a framework. You have a habit of sorting what's yours from what isn't. And from that sorted, settled, grounded place, you can respond. I want to speak specifically to the men in the audience right now, because I think that there is a particular crisis happening among men that doesn't get talked about honestly enough. Men in this country, and I see this in my coaching work constantly, are struggling with identity and purpose and direction in a way that is historically unusual. The culture has spent the better part of a decade sending confusing and often hostile messages about what it means to be a man. Strength, discipline, decisive leadership, traits that have historically been understood as virtues, have been reframed in the cultural conversation as problems to be corrected, as things to be apologetic about. If that's you, if you're out there, if you're listening, if that hits, if that lands, let me just say, you're not alone. You are not alone. There's many, many people that feel that way, and I can help. I felt that way myself. I've navigated through that. I felt that way myself. If you'd like to reach out, if you'd like to get in touch, quite simply, all you got to do is take out your smartphone, go to your texting app, key in 84503. It's again 84503, and then just text me. Text Greybeard, just my name, Greybeard, Greybeard, to 84503. And rest assured, my friends, I'm going to be back here same time, same place next week to talk more mentorship with you. Greybeard out. This is The Greybeard Show.
The Greybeard Show. Learn.
Build.
Grow.